coronavirus crisis. President Joe Biden sets new targets for vaccinations and family gatherings. Knights of Columbus. Hear from Patrick Kelly as he takes on his new role as Supreme Knight. Major milestone. Catholics celebrate 500 years of Christianity in the Philippines. And Lenten fast food. How restaurants are catering to Catholics. On EWTN News Nightly for Friday, March 12, 2021. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. I'm Tracy Sable. President Joe Biden meets with the leaders of India, Japan, and Australia virtually. The goal to produce more vaccines to beat COVID-19. The meeting happened just hours after a primetime speech in which the president zeroed in on May 1st to make all American adults eligible for vaccination. White House correspondent Owen Jensen reports. Owen.
Tracy, good evening. We'll get to that meeting with the Indo-Pacific leaders in a moment. First, I want to tell you about a ceremony that took place a little earlier today here at the White House in the Rose Garden. This afternoon, President Joe Biden met with Democrats to celebrate the American Rescue Plan.
President Joe Biden and fellow Democrats gather at the White House to cheer the passage of the nearly $2 trillion COVID relief law he signed yesterday.
Because of what you all did and passed, we had the money to go out and literally purchased hundreds of millions of vaccines.
Earlier in the day, the president spoke virtually with the Indo-Pacific Alliance, known as the Quad, about plans to produce more COVID-19 vaccine.
And we're launching an ambitious new joint partnership that is going to boost vaccine manufacturing and for the global benefit and strengthen vaccinations to benefit the entire Indo-Pacific.
At today's White House news briefing, National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan addressed reporters about what the partnership means for the U.S.
What it is an opportunity for these four democracies to work as a group and also with other countries on fundamental issues of economics, technology, climate, and security.
Meanwhile, the COVID-19 response team today urging Americans to double down on precautions and warning.
Cases and hospitalizations and deaths remain high. And we've been fooled before into being too lax.
And as spring eventually turns into summer, the team reiterated what the president said last night, that all American adults would be eligible for vaccinations no later than May 1st. And perhaps by the time the fireworks fly,
there's a good chance that families and friends will be able to safely gather in small groups to celebrate Independence Day.
And separately tonight, with thousands of children crossing the southern border alone over the last few months, well, tonight the Biden administration says it's changing a Trump administration policy so family members and sponsors will come forward and take care of the kids without fear of being deported. There's been a 60% increase in kids crossing the border. At the White House, Owen Jensen, EWTN News Nightly.
People in Italy are now facing another coronavirus lockdown. It is set to take place over Easter weekend from April 3rd through the 5th. The decree will put all of Italy's regions in the red zone and will include more restrictions across the country, limiting movement between towns. The lockdown is in response to a recent surge in COVID-19 cases. A Vatican official says he supports a suggestion that Catholics and Orthodox work to agree on a common date to celebrate Easter. Most Orthodox Christians use the Julian calendar, which is different from the Gregorian calendar used by Catholics. Cardinal Kurt Koch says it will not be easy to reach an agreement, but it is worth discussing. An official from the Holy See is criticizing a recent United Nations report on freedom of religion. The Vatican representative in Geneva says the study only examined attacks against the Islamic faith.
Within the United Nations, the attention is usually given to the religious groups in Europe and probably in the Mediterranean area. But we are forgetting continuously, or probably not giving sufficient attention to what is happening in other parts of the world.
Archbishop Ivan Yurkovich, the permanent observer of the Holy See to the United Nations in Geneva, says the UN often neglects addressing problems in India and Africa. We thank our colleague Christian Peschkin of EWTN Germany for this report. On Sunday, Pope Francis will celebrate Mass to mark 500 years of Christianity in the Philippines. The first Mass and baptism took place in the Philippines in 1521. After 300 years of no priest, the first Filipino was appointed bishop in 1905. Today, 86% of the population is Catholic. The church in the country's capital of Manila serves nearly 3 million people. Joining us now is Father Gregory Gaston, rector at the Pontifical Filipino College in Rome. Father Gregory, welcome back. So good to see you. So tell us, will you be at the Mass on Sunday, and what do you hope the Pope's message will be?
Yes, well, I'm quite lucky to have been invited to concelebrate with the Pope. We'll be about 10 priests, I think, with 2 cardinals. And of course, the Pope will most probably, well, he'll say what he wants to say, but hopefully he would express his closeness to each one of us, to all Filipinos, not only here in Rome, but all over the world, in the same way that last 2015, he was there in the Philippines in the midst of the typhoon, and we felt really close to him.
Tell us overall, how is the church doing in the Philippines?
Yes, well, in the Philippines, we're about 85% Catholics, and then we're the 3rd largest Catholic country after Brazil and Mexico. And as a matter of fact, about 60% of Asian Catholics are Filipinos. So whether in the Philippines or all over the world, we're following the footsteps presented to us 500 years ago. So I think the church is quite vibrant in the Philippines. Of course, we still need a lot of formation, a lot of spiritual life, a lot of doctrine as well. But that would be normal, and I think that would be part of a more intense spiritual life, Christian life, that we all have to grow in.
And what about the church in the Philippines? How do you plan to celebrate the 500th anniversary of Christianity?
Yes, we have a lineup of different celebrations all over the country. We have national celebrations to the extent possible with all these limitations brought about by the COVID pandemic. But each diocese would have, for example, the cathedral or some other shrine have been designated as places where one could visit and gain a plenary indulgence. And each diocese would have its set of activities. And of course, the most special, the most important preparation, I would say, is the individual preparation, so that we know that we're not only remembering what happened in 1521, 500 years ago, actually March 16, 1521, when Magellan, the first Spaniard, and his group came to the Philippines and brought the Christian faith, but we remember not only what happened 500 years ago, we remember more or less the whole period, the 500 years, and each year that God has given us his many graces. So our celebration for this year is also the year for missions, and we remember that we did not only receive the faith, but we are also tasked. We have this responsibility to share the faith with others.
Well, that is so wonderful. Father, thank you so much for being with us today. We really appreciate it. Father Gregory Gaston, rector of the Pontifical Filipino College. Thank you again.
Thank you so much.
Coming up, Supreme Night. The new head of the Knights of Columbus joins us to discuss his role at the Catholic organization. The pro-abortion protesters who disrupted a Respect Life Mass in Columbus, Ohio, are now facing criminal charges. Bishop Robert Brennan was celebrating Mass on January 22nd when the protesters interrupted. They are now charged with disorderly conduct and criminal trespass. Earlier this month, the Knights of Columbus, the largest Catholic fraternal organization in the world, welcomed a new Supreme Knight. Patrick Kelly is the 14th Supreme Knight. He heads an organization with more than 2 million members worldwide. Kelly spent 24 years with the U.S. Navy and joined the Knights of Columbus while a student at Marquette University. The Knights of Columbus is a sponsor of EWTN News Nightly. And Patrick Kelly, the new Supreme Knight of the Knights of Columbus, joins us now. Mr. Supreme Knight, welcome and congratulations. Thank you so much for being with us. I know that you've been with the Knights of Columbus for quite some time, but tell us what it means to you to serve as Supreme Knight and what your main goals and priorities are.
It's a tremendous honor for me to serve as Supreme Knight and to lead this fabulous organization of 2 million men, which is 2 million families with a very proud 140-year-old tradition and legacy. My priorities are, if you think about it, to go back to the founding vision of Father Michael McGivney. We had a very important event last year, and it was the beatification of Father McGivney, who was a parish priest who founded the Knights. And it was the Lord, I think, confirming for us the mission of the Knights of Columbus and that vision of Father McGivney to strengthen the Catholic man and strengthen the Catholic family. So every decision I make and we make as a team here at the Knights of Columbus will be grounded in that vision. Now, obviously, we have to get through COVID. We have to get our councils back in action. I think our councils will be able to help our pastors get the parishes up and running and get parishioners back in the pews. But once we get through COVID, obviously we're going to continue our great record of charity, of service, and we're going to continue protecting Catholic families through our insurance program. But I think there's a very important initiative that I'm very excited about, and that is actually strengthening the Catholic man and his family. I think the Catholic man who is working hard to keep his marriage healthy and keep his kids in the Catholic faith, I think he's struggling. And I think he's doing that in a culture that is not helping him one bit. In fact, it's working against him. So I think going forward, the Knights of Columbus need to be there for that man and help him keep his marriage in a good place and keep his kids Catholic.
Yeah, and that is so important. Can you talk a little bit about the ongoing and upcoming Knights of Columbus initiatives that you're really excited about?
Well, one of on this score of keeping your kids Catholic and keeping your marriage healthy, we recently did a program called Into the Breach, which really taught men and showed men what a healthy, authentic Catholic masculinity looks like. It was called Into the Breach, and it was a very, very successful program. And in the future, what we're planning to do is to do a very similar program on marriage. So to help the Catholic man keep his marriage in a good place. I'm very, very excited about that because I think it's needed. The Knights of Columbus, if you read our history, what you see is we've always been able to read the signs of the times and where can the Knights help the church at that moment in history. And this is, I think, an issue of the Catholic man and his marriage and his kids. That's very, very important for the church. So I think that's an area that the Knights of Columbus will very much be involved with in the future.
Yeah, and there's something else I want to talk about. We know that late last month, the parish in Connecticut where the Knights of Columbus was founded was actually vandalized. Do you know anything more about that? Any updates? Anything else you can tell us?
Yeah, the New Haven police are still investigating that vandalism. It looks like it was just a random act of vandalism, and the church, St. Mary's, wasn't targeted for any particular reason. But obviously, it's of great concern for us because St. Mary's is where our founder, Blessed Michael McGivney, is entombed, and it's the mother church of the Knights of Columbus. So we're working very closely with the parish to make those repairs to the windows, and we're looking forward to that being fixed in the very near term.
Well, Mr. Kelly, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it. And again, congratulations. Patrick Kelly, the 14th Supreme Knight of the Knights of Columbus. Thank you again.
Thank you, Tracy.
Well, the Vatican's head of interreligious dialogue says Pope Francis's trip to Iraq was an important step towards peace.
Besides the complexity of our problems, there is, in reality, the possibility of living together and promoting together this coexistence that particularly in Iraq, like in other parts of the world, we are in need of.
Cardinal Ayuso Guizot says the Holy Father's meeting with a top Shiite Muslim leader was one of respect and friendship. He also says Pope Francis's mission is to promote the role of religion in society and the importance of working side by side as brothers and sisters. Tonight on EWTN News In Depth, a closer look at the Holy Father's apostolic journey to Iraq and the significance of his meeting with a leading Muslim cleric.
When he mentioned interreligious dialogue, His Holiness is setting an example of a real, authentic dialogue, not to sit around the table for others to come to discuss and do the dialogue. No. I will leave my place in Rome and go to the other.
Archbishop Bashar Warda also talks to EWTN News In Depth host Monsi Alvarado about some of his favorite moments from the Holy Father's visit. That is tonight on EWTN News In Depth at 8 p.m. Eastern. Up next, remembering St. Elizabeth Ann Seton. See the new artifacts unveiled to the public. And Meat-Free Fridays, how fast food restaurants are offering alternatives for Lent. Artifacts and relics from the first American-born saint are set to be displayed following a generous donation. Several treasures from the life of St. Elizabeth Ann Seton have been moved to the National Shrine in her honor in Emmitsburg, Maryland. Among the artifacts are Mother Seton's bonnet and her Bible donated by the Sisters of Charity in New York. And joining us now is Rob Judge, Executive Director of the National Shrine of St. Elizabeth Ann Seton. Rob, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it. Before we talk about the donation, I want to quickly talk a little bit about St. Elizabeth Ann Seton's life. What can you tell us?
Sure. Well, St. Elizabeth Ann Seton, of course, is the first native-born American saint. She was born in 1774 into a wealthy family. She had a lot of joys and sorrows. She was married with 5 children. After the death of her husband, of course, she moved to Emmitsburg, founded a school and a religious community that serves the poor.
And going back to that donation, how did it come about? And tell us why it's so significant.
Sure. So this year, of course, is the 200th anniversary of St. Elizabeth Ann Seton's death or passage into eternal life. And the Sisters of Charity of New York, who look at Mother Seton as a foundress, are very involved in the programming at the shrine. And we wanted to really celebrate this year and spread the word about Elizabeth Seton far and wide. And they felt that this exhibit, because these artifacts are things that were in her hands and make her very human and relatable, that it would be an excellent time to donate them to her shrine, to share them with the tens of thousands of visitors that come through her national shrine.
Yeah, and what are some of the highlights of this collection, that is, and what do you find most fascinating?
Yeah, there's so many treasures. One of my favorites is the christening dress. So this is the actual dress that Catherine Seton, Mother Seton's daughter, wore when she was baptized. So if you imagine a young couple or a mother coming to the shrine and seeing that gown that was used for a saint's daughter's baptism. We also, of course, as you mentioned, have the bonnet. So this is the only known part of Elizabeth Ann Seton's religious habit that signifies the sacrifice and the service that the sisters have given for years to the poor. We also have a writing desk. We have a tea chest that belonged to her father, and miniatures of her and Will right after their wedding.
That's so fascinating. What do you think will be the big takeaways for the public when they come to visit? And also, when will they be able to see it?
So, I think the big takeaway is that she was a human just like we were, very human. Many of the saints, I think, we read them in far off lands, but Elizabeth Seton was one of our own and walked right here on our ground. And the more that we relate to her, I think the more that we can appreciate also her faith, right? What was important to her in this life that led her to become a saint, making her a role model and an example to all of us. These artifacts will go on exhibit this summer in July at the National Shrine of St. Elizabeth Ann Seton in Emmitsburg. And viewers can find out more about that and other activities on our website, which is setonshrine.org.
Rob, before I let you go, what else can you tell us about the shrine? What do you think our viewers, that is, should know?
Well, I think, the shrine includes a basilica where Elizabeth Ann Seton is entombed. So her remains are there today. And that's the primary reason people come, is to come and visit her in the side altar of the basilica. But we also have 2 historic houses. So you can actually walk in the very houses where Elizabeth Seton lived, where she finished raised her children, where she founded the order. You can kneel right at the altar where she would have prayed. And ultimately, that was the house that she passed from this life to the next. So it's just an amazing way to encounter the home of a saint.
Yeah, Rob, thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate it. Rob Judge, Executive Director of the National Shrine of St. Elizabeth Ann Seton. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Well, the Pope's preacher says Christ's divine nature is the climax of our Christian faith.
La divinità di Cristo è la cima più alta, è l'Everest della fede.
As the Vatican's Lenten meditation, Cardinal Raniero Cantalamessa says to know Christ is to believe in his goodness. If we forget this, everything collapses. He said, even when we are struggling in life, the Christian knows he or she is always loved by God. And finally, tonight, as Catholics await the coming of Easter, they continue to practice Lenten observances, including prayer, fasting, and almsgiving. And it seems corporate America is paying attention. Correspondent Mark Irons reports.
It's Friday during Lent. You're craving fast food, and you're Catholic.
Yeah, I'll just take the Filet-O-Fish.
You want a meal?
Just one Filet-O-Fish.
Choosing the fish over the burger, Catholics have been observing this sacrificial season for centuries.
Prayers, fasting, and almsgiving.
In the middle of these 40 days before Easter, students at the Catholic University of America told me about their experiences.
I gave up soda for Lent. It's been kind of tough, but working through it.
Pray every day, get into fasting more.
And fasting includes abstaining from meat. The fast food business must be paying attention, right?
I just had a question. I was curious, is the Filet-O-Fish, is it pretty popular during Lent?
We called up various fast food establishments looking for answers.
Hi, could I speak to a manager, please?
A place like Arby's, with its slogan, "We have the meats," is now offering a limited-time fish sandwich. And Popeye's Chicken is even joining the fish frenzy, recently introducing a Cajun flounder option.
Have you noticed like an uptick in sales, like during...
Oh, yeah. But it wasn't until we heard back from the corporate offices of White Castle that it became clear the fast food industry is very aware of the Catholic Church calendar. It's no coincidence that seasonal fish specials are popping up this time each year.
We know this is an important time of year for so many of our customers, our Catholic customers especially, and so we want to be there for them.
The Vice President of Marketing and PR for White Castle, Jamie Richardson, is Catholic himself.
Every year during the Lenten season, fish sales pick up. I mean, we definitely see that on Friday. We definitely see it on Ash Wednesday.
This fast food tradition isn't as old as the Catholic Church, but it does go back decades. Richardson says White Castle has been offering a fish option since the 1950s. And in the 1960s, the Golden Arches started hooking Catholic customers. According to McDonald's, the Filet-O-Fish was created when a franchisee noticed a decrease in sales on Fridays and convinced McDonald's to test a breaded whitefish sandwich to help satisfy customers who abstain from eating meat on Fridays in observance of Lent. Places like McDonald's, Popeyes, Arby's, Wendy's, and White Castle hope to have Catholics drive through this Lent. Still, it's not explicitly posted for all to see.
Why not put it out there in the open? Why not have a big sign calling all Catholics?
We'll do that right now, calling all Catholics. Come to the castle. We got you covered.
In Washington, Mark Irons, EWTN News Nightly.
All right, noted. Getting hungry. And thank you for watching tonight. For the entire EWTN News Nightly team, I'm Tracy Sable. Good night and God bless.